Did everyone else hear Antoinette? I think you have audio issues, Antoinette.
Yeah, I think it's a bandwidth issue on my end. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. No, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for joining today's workshop. We're really excited. It's something that was put together by members of the Housing Committee. So just wanted to kick it off to folks who really helped to spearhead tonight's workshop. So I know John Santuri, not sure if you wanted to kick it off. I see that you're an attendee. Jeremy, can you help promote John to present to a panelist?
He's already a panelist.
Okay, awesome.
John, I don't know if you're talking, but you're muted.
No, I was just waiting, Jeremy. Thank you. But I'm good. I'll be right back.
Okay, so when you all had met, who had discussed facilitating tonight's workshop? Sorry.
So John is introducing.
Okay, perfect. So
Yeah.
we'll just hold off on John.
Yeah.
Sorry for the wait.
I'm back, everyone. If I'm delaying us, we have the slideshow in the chat, right? Yeah, I see a slideshow in the chat. So am I kicking this off? And if so, I need to present my screen. Is that right?
John, you should have permission to share your screen. Yes.
Let me see if I can do
Not
that.
yet, I have to give him permission.
I think I do have permission.
John, you can share your screen now.
Yeah. So now it should be, am I sharing the slideshow here? There we go. Terrific. So I'll start us off. Sorry to delay everyone. I apologize. My name's John. I live on 56th Street. I've lived in Sunset Park since 2016. I'm a renter. And I've always been a renter in Sunset Park. And I wanted to introduce these workshops, which I've been working on with other members of the Housing Committee. I'm not on CB7 as a CB7 member, but I am a community member of the Housing Committee. So I and other people have been working to put these meetings together. So why are these workshops being done? The CB7 Housing Committee has expressed interests in community land trusts. That's what this presentation is all about today. There was a presentation earlier in the year about land trusts, and we wanted to revisit the issue. Our goal is to explore land trusts in relation to affordable housing creation. They can certainly be used for other things as well. But there's definitely interest in affordable housing construction and maintenance among the CB7 Housing Committee. And this is one of the tools that's used to get this. So this is not an endorsement of land trusts. We don't want this to be a meeting where we're endorsing any particular method. This is for educational purposes. Our goal is to create a conversation. We hope that there will be others on the topic. And of course, if people are interested in exploring this, they can always organize and do so outside of CB7. So we had a presentation a few weeks ago, about 2 weeks ago, about the legal aspects of CLT creation. This was our original progression, but we went to workshop 3 first. We had some students from CUNY Law School talk to us about the legal aspects of CLT creation. We have a video that we'll be hopefully being able to share soon. We have a memo and a slideshow from that as well. And now we're stepping back to our workshop 1 introduction, where our goals are to provide information to the community about community land trusts, CLTs, to talk about community questions, to record community feedback about CLTs and whether people are interested in exploring them further. That's the goal of today's workshop. So with that, we're going to begin with community land trusts. What are they and how do they work? And I think we're going to begin by going over I'm going to actually stop sharing right now. So Elise, do you want to share your screen and begin your presentation? Elise is our main guest in this presentation. She's presented to CB7 before as well. She's with the New Economy Project and Nicely, and she'll be telling us about who she is and what she does, and then we'll be leading us in a discussion of community land trusts.
Actually, before we start, could we ask Rodrigo, do you mind asking if anyone needs interpretation in Spanish or if we're...
Sure. I don't know if it's activated, but I can ask. Si alguien necesita interpretación, ¿podría alzar su mano? ¿O hablar? Okay. Okay, gracias.
Thanks, Rodrigo.
Hey, good evening, everybody. So yeah, really happy to be here this evening with you all. And I apologize in advance for my voice. I have COVID. I'm recovering from COVID, so I still have kind of like a cold going on. But yeah, hopefully that will you'll all be able to understand me. But my name is Elise Golden. I'm the Community Land Trust Campaign Organizer with New Economy Project. And for those of you who don't know, New Economy Project is a citywide organization that works to build a new economy that works for all New Yorkers, that's rooted in racial, economic justice, and ecological sustainability. And one of the ways that we tried to achieve that vision of the world is through community land trusts. And I'm also joined here this evening with my colleague and rock star, Ms. Deborah Ack with the East New York Community Land Trust. Deborah,
hi, everyone. No, I just want to say hi to everybody. Like Elise said, I'm Deborah. I'm a member and co-founder of the East New York Community Land Trust. I'm also a special project coordinator as under the umbrella of Cypress Hills Local Development. Back to you, Elise.
Great. So I'm gonna, would it be possible to share my screen? Could somebody enable that for me?
Yes, I just have to make you a co-host.
Okay.
You should be able to share your screen now.
Okay. Thank you. So everyone can see this, right? So Deborah and I our organizations are both members of a citywide group called the New York City Community Land Initiative, which we call Nicely. And that's a coalition of community land trusts across New York City. In like 5 years ago, I would say there were only maybe 3 community land trusts. Right now, because of the work of Nicely and particularly the work of Picture the Homeless and other groups that really created this movement here in New York City, we have over 20 community land trusts across the city. So this is a movement that is really has really been taking root in the city. And we wanted to mention, and I know the community board particularly wanted to mention, that there are many different models to create affordable housing. So there are, you know, housing cooperatives, mutual housing associations, nonprofit, community development corporations. There's all these different ways to create affordable housing, and community land trust is one tool to create deeply and permanently affordable housing, and can actually be combined with many of these other models to ensure permanent affordability and permanent community control. Let's see, should we watch a quick video? Would that be helpful?
Sure, go for it.
All right, we'll do it. This is a video that shows a little bit about who Nicely is, from one of our campaigns that we call Public Land in Public Hands, where we're fighting to say that our precious public land in New York City shouldn't be just given away to for-profit developers, but should stay in the hands of the community for the public benefit. And we know that community land trusts would do just that. And so our campaign is Public Land in Public Hands, and we're fighting for a bill that would make that law, that community land trusts and other nonprofits would have priority to take public land when the city's getting rid of it.
At least there's no volume.
Okay. Let's try that again. I think I need to share the sound.
While Elise is getting the video together, I just would like to say that, CLTs, they're about housing, but not only housing. They're about entrepreneurship. We know that the retail space in East New York anyway is so highly priced out that people from the community can't afford to start up a business. We have our college students who go away to college, want to come back and want to invest in the community, but the retail space is unavailable to them. It's so highly priced out. CLTs are also very much interested in creating truly affordable retail space, green space. Okay, Elise.
Thank you for that. Yes.
Of land right here, many of you know, has been empty for a really long time, is owned by the city, and we believe that this plot of land that's right behind me right here belongs in the hands of community.
The charter here in New York City is one of the most influential pieces of law, and being able to actually get language, black and white letter law in there that says you need to prioritize CLTs will change the game for us.
To Western Queens Community Land Trust, allow us to build farms, allow us to build affordable workspaces, allow us to build street vendor cart, right, storage carts, allow us to create film, music, and TV production space. Queensbridge, these people are extremely talented, but we have no space to create. We the people, though, have the power to change that. We have the power to take that building, do what we know needs to be done with it for the people here in Long Island City and Western Queens.
So we want y'all to tell this Racial Justice Commission to say that we need to reform the charter to include specifically language that says we need all the public land to go to CLTs, and that's what we mean by public hands. Racial Justice Commission, this is what we want! Public land and public hands! What do we want? Public land and public hands!
Awesome. So I think that that video kind of gives you a little bit of a sense of like in one day, that was showing just one day in 3 different boroughs, community land trusts were taking action to say that we should be in control of our land and be able to maintain it as permanently affordable for that actually benefits in a way that actually benefits us. So yeah, so we're a part of a really powerful, exciting movement, and I think that video shows that. So yeah, let's talk a little bit. Let's back up and talk a little bit about what is a community land trust. So this kind of picture shows, you can see on the left, right? You see Mr. Moneybanks. You see factories and people being exploited, right? And to us in the housing movement, in the land justice movement, that's the way we see kind of our world today, right? Is land is being used for profit and not actually in a way that benefits us. And then on the right side, we see people actually being a part of controlling the land, of having homes with dignity, housing for all, right? That land is being used for the people. And to us, that's sort of our vision of the community land trust movement, that we're working to take land off of the speculative market to make sure that it's used to develop housing, other spaces, commercial spaces, community facilities, and that are inclusive and affordable to everybody. And we want to recognize that this concept of land stewardship is really old. It's rooted in indigenous practices. We definitely are not the first to create these concepts, and we want to, acknowledge that we're on unceded Lenni Lenape territory as we do this work. And CLTs were created in the late 60s in Albany, Georgia. The first community land trust is a place called New Communities, Inc. that was formed out of the civil rights movement by a group of civil rights activists that weren't able to stay in their communities because of their activism. And together they bought a piece of land and formed the first community land trust. And now I think this number is much, much bigger. We have to update it. This obviously says there's over 240 CLTs. I think they're probably way, way more than that around the country. And in New York City, we've had one really long-standing, very successful community land trust since the early 90s, the Cooper Square Community Land Trust, that has over 350 units of really very deeply affordable housing, and I believe 16 commercial spaces, and it's expanding. It's extremely impressive. And now, as I said, there are over 20 community land trusts in New York City, and that's only growing. And here is a map, as you can see, where many of the CLTs are. And you can see in South Brooklyn, there are yet to be any community land trusts, but in Brooklyn, there are definitely several, especially Central Brooklyn, in East New York, Brownsville. But yeah. And I'm going to pass it to Deborah to explain what is a CLT. You're muted, Deborah.
what is a community land trust? A community land trust is an organization, a non-for-profit organization that acquires the land, and the organization leases the land to the community. And we steward the land, which means that we help whoever develops or whoever we lease the land to, whatever they build on it, that we make sure that it stays truly affordable to the community, to the people of the community in perpetuity, meaning forever, because the CLT owns the land. And we know that when you own the land, you have the power to decide what is built on it. This way, the government can't come in and take your land from you. If when we lease out the land, if someone decides to sell what they have built on the CLT land, we make sure that they sell it at a price that someone from the community can afford to purchase. Let's say you have a home that's built on CLT land. You can sell that home, but you can't sell it to make an enormous profit like the for-profit developers do. They're always flipping homes in East New York. They'll buy a home and they'll flip it so that it will cost 2 to 3 to 4 times more than what they paid for it. And that means that the people of the community are now priced out of being able to afford that home. So what the CLT model does is we create a ground lease, and that ground lease is for 99 years. And within that ground lease, it says that you can sell your home, but you can only sell it for a maximum amount of money. We want to make sure that that home is truly affordable for the next person in the community to be able to purchase. Not only that, we ensure that your home will stay within your family for years to come. You want to make sure that your home goes to your children and your children's children. You don't want the government to come in and try and buy you out, or real estate developers or speculators to come in and want to buy your home from you. So the CLT, because we own the land, we prevent that from happening. Anything else, Elise, I miss?
No, I think that's great. I think one thing I'll just emphasize is that one thing that's really unique about a CLT is that, as Deborah was saying, the CLT owns and stewards the land. And then I'm just repeating, and then leases the land to the building owners or those who are using the land. So there's like, it splits the land and the buildings on top of it. So that split is really unique. And then let's see. Deborah, do you want to talk about the
Oh,
board
sure.
structure?
The how a CLT works. A CLT is made up of a board, and it's a tripart board. The first part of it would be residents of the CLT. The second part would be members surrounding the community that are living around the community. And the third part would be like public officials, housing experts. It's a tripart, so we have 5, 5, and 5. It's a 15-member board, so that no one entity, no one tripart can overpower another tripart. That's what we call the democratic way of making decisions on what's put on the land and how the land is stewarded and how the building that's on it is stewarded. We use the term all the time, by and for the community, by the community, for the community. It's an ongoing organizing and partnership that's crucial to long-term success. It has to be democratically voted on so that it can be successful. And it's all about the people of the community, the members of the surrounding community who have a deep interest in CLTs And it's also about the public officials and the housing experts that want to see CLTs be successful, that want to see the community itself be successful, because we own our land, and who better to decide what's put on the land than the community itself.
Thank you. And yeah, I see a question in the chat. How do you distinguish residents from community members?
Residents are people that actually live, like I said, the CLT buys the land, and let's say a building is put on the land. That would be the people who live in the building would be considered residents of the CLT. Members of the surrounding community would not live on land that is owned by the CLT. Did I answer?
Yeah, exactly. And so it creates sort of a checks and balances. Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Were you going to jump in?
No, go ahead.
Okay, great. And yeah, and I'll just add, let's say the CLT doesn't have housing. Instead of residents, it would be, you know, those who are using commercial space or community gardeners, those who are actually using the land. The idea is they would make up a third of the board. Yes, I see a hand.
RG, Hammer.
Yeah, do you have a question?
Rodrigo?
Rodrigo, can you unmute your line?
He's having audio issues. I wonder if that's because he's the interpreter.
Mm.
Oh yeah, you need to be in the English line, maybe.
Right. So let me take him off of interpreter right now. Try it now, Rodrigo. He's still listed as interpreter.
Maybe if you want to throw it in the chat. Oh, he's gone.
Oh. He left. Maybe he's the attendant.
All right, great. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Great.
Sorry about that. I just
No
moved
worries.
you to attendee, and then I just
Yeah. Just in terms of that breakout of the board, that's just recommended, right? I mean, it could be anything. It's like a best practice, I'm guessing.
Well, so far for the CLTs that own land, that have land, it's been a no-win for them. It's worked perfectly. East New York CLT, we're in the process of purchasing a building in late January. The building is 18-unit tenement building. The CLT will own the land. The tenants will control the building. And long-term, what we're looking for is to turn those units into ownership for the tenants of the building. So the tripart will work perfectly. The residents of the building would be considered CLT members. And then we would have members of the surrounding community, which could be people outside of the immediate East New York CLT. We have libraries over there. We have other non-for-profit organizations surrounding that building. They may want to be on the board. We have not the banks, but there are other organizations surrounding that building that may want to be on the board to make sure that building stays permanently, that those units stay permanently, truly affordable. And then we have public officials. We have council members who are looking to really push forward the CLT movement. We have people in real estate that are looking to be a part of a CLT board. So it's been working out for us so far.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, Jeremy.
Yeah, I was curious about that, including that's interesting about including elected officials on boards, especially if elected officials are, you know, maybe temporary or not around. Like, I'm curious how that works if there's sort of people have had like a sitting seat for, say, like a council member, or because especially on the land use issues, it seems like basically the most important is city council at least. But curious how that sort of works with the including elected officials and how that relationship has been. Because I think in some way people maybe see this as like, you know, being beyond, you know, the political infrastructure or beyond sort of elected officials. So it's interesting to see them being included in boards on the CLT.
Well, it doesn't really have to be an elected official. It could be someone from the community board that may want to be seated on the tripod of housing board. It, like I said, it doesn't necessarily, it just so happens that East New York, we have a council member, Sandy Nurse, who has fought tooth and nail with CLTs and the council to see that the CLT movement continues to move forward. And every new council member that comes in, we always give them a workshop and a learning lesson about CLTs and what the CLT movement is. They either get on board or, you know, we give the seat to another official. Doesn't have to be a elected official.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And just to like go back about like these are best practices. So the pieces that are really like essential to a CLT, and obviously they take work. Just because you create a community land trust doesn't mean it's gonna immediately, you know, be a perfect tool. But we really believe that they and the CLT movement across the country and the world really like holds these principles that they're democratically governed, that they have this tripartite board, that there's ongoing community organizing. And so we believe and we hope that like through that work being done well, that it creates an effective tool. All right, I see Rodrigo's hand, and then I also want to make sure we move on. But yeah, go ahead, Rodrigo.
Sorry, I should wait, but just if at some point you could talk about the relationship between CLTs and mutual housing associations. I know it's often those are paired together, but I'll let you continue.
Sure, yeah, we can talk about it, but I'll say I believe all the CLTs that currently have land in New York City are all mutual housing associations. That has been how it works here in New York City, and that they are operated for the most part in collaboration with nonprofit housing developers. But we can talk more about that. So I'll say the obvious, right? The hardest part about having a community land trust is actually acquiring land. We have over 20 CLTs, but the number is now shifting because groups are winning and getting land. So I think probably out of that 5 or so actually have land, or maybe 6 have land either currently or are in process of getting land. But CLTs don't right now have any special way to get land. So they need to be buying land on the market. We need to be pressuring and advocating that the city transfers public land to community land trusts, which they would do for $1. We need to find creative ways to change how the city collects collects taxes, so that people who live in their homes can stay in their homes and preserve their equity, and that homes are transferred to community land trusts when it makes sense so that they can stay permanently affordable. Or there are other ways, but right now there's no kind of like special tool for CLTs to just immediately get land.
Yeah, I just want to add, at least, that when it came to the East New York CLT acquiring this building, the way we were able to do it is one of the tenants there is a CLT member, and they had been fighting with their landlord for years for repairs, just the basics that they needed, heat, hot water, for years. It was someone who bought a building and was looking to flip it to make money. So the East New York CLT got involved. We spoke with the owner of the building. We explained to him what the CLT is, the model, and how we wanted to turn those units into co-ops or condos. So ownership, period. And once we explained to him and met with him a couple of times and he understood more about the CLT movement, he was willing to sell his building to us. It's not ideal to do it that way. I mean, it's a good ideal, but it's more costly to do it that way. But we have philanthropists, we have all kinds of people who have invested in the East New York CLT to acquire this building. So that was one way of doing it, by going directly to the source and saying, look, you really don't want this building. Your tenants are suing you. You're going to constantly in court. You're getting fines. Sell the building to us and let us, help and not displace the tenants who are in the building. So that was one way of doing it.
Awesome. So this is a slide that was added by the community board. I don't know if you all wanted to take it or you wanted me to read it out. I can read it, or you can.
I think that we wanted to talk about some of the, let me see if I can find this slide in terms of the numbers. This is slide number 18. And yeah, we wanted to just review some of what are the benefits of CLTs as far as we can tell from having spoken to you, Elise, and having heard from Deborah and other people. Thank you so much for being here, Deborah, by the way.
Sure.
We really appreciate your time, and this is great to have your perspective. On this slide that's on the board, these were some of the benefits that we were aware of, and that you can use CLTs possibly for rehabilitated units or new construction, that you can work with mutual housing associations, which is definitely something that I would need to learn more about. I would like to learn more about that. They can be used for multiple kinds of housing, possibly. Is there anything you wanna add pertaining to this slide, Elise? And then we could look at the next slide. This is sort of some of our takeaways from speaking to you and hearing your previous presentations. Would you say that this is accurate information?
Yeah, totally.
Yes.
I think there are two quick things I would add, and maybe Deborah would want to add anything, but what comes to mind is one, community land trusts are also an organizing tool. So they're not just about having, there might be nonprofit developers or different types of tools, but community organizing is a really key component of CLTs, and it's really about building community power and having real community ownership. So I just want to make sure that doesn't get lost. And then what Deborah had mentioned as well is that community land trusts can be really flexible. So a community land trust can steward the land and really make decisions about what they want to go on top of that land. And so through community surveys or, organizing and making collective decisions, a group of people can decide, you know, we actually, what we really need here is a, you know, an urban farm, right? We want to learn how to produce our own food, or we want a health center, or we want a park,
Commercial
whatever it
space.
is, commercial space. So it can go much beyond housing,
Yes,
though
yes.
of course we know here in New York City, housing is such a huge need. So of course that is a big focus, but I just wanted to add those few things.
I'm just going to add one other quick thing that I'm involved in as a coordinator. There's an area in East New York. It's divided. Half of it's Brooklyn and half of it's Queens is on Queens. It's called the Hole, but we call it the Jewel Streets because it has various names as Amber and Sapphire, and it has precious jewels names for their streets. Those homeowners over there have been neglected for over 50 years. It's an area that sits 8 feet below ground level. And because of that, the city has ignored it. Like I said, for over 50 years, there's no sewer system over there. Those homes are run by septic tanks. And because they sit in a bowl, the bottom of the bowl, when it rains, of course, the bowl fills up. So the East New York CLT, along with Cypress Hills Local Development, has gotten together with the homeowners and the residents of that area to bring all of the agencies together, DEP, HPD, all of them, DOT, to come up with a plan to restore this neighborhood back to livable conditions. People have lived there for 30, 40. One lady's been there the whole time for 50 years, and they don't want to lose their homes. So as an organizer, the East New York CLT, we've, like I said, met with these agencies, and we're working to get them storm rain drainage system along with a sewer system, and whatever else the homeowners and the residents decide that they want. So like Elise was saying, we're not only about preserving homes, we're about organizing for communities that need change. The CLT is not purchasing any land, or we're not trying to get any land out of this area. We just want the people to have a decent place to live and thrive in. So that's one of the things that a CLT can do as an organizing mechanism.
Thank you very much for that. And then can we go to the next slide, slide 19, Elise? Or just two up. I'm sorry, I think it's two up from that, two previous, I mean. There was just another slide here about some existing benefits that it can support development that is not necessarily trying to maximize profit, and that it can provide affordable space for existing community assets. So we wrote down Cooper Square CLT protects a range of community spaces, a food co-op, or actually I think these are your notes. Is that right, Elise? Or did we write that? Okay, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting exactly the origin of this slide. But is there anything you want to add about supporting development without displacement, or supporting existing community assets by providing affordable space?
I'll start, Elise, then you can jump in. Okay, for me, what that means to me is in East New York, I love the ideal of 1 to 4 to maybe 6 family homes that were all in East New York. But because of the rezoning, now we have 10, 12-story apartment buildings coming into the community. Yes, I know we are in a housing crisis, but those homes, those apartments are not affordable for the people of the community. So that's creating displacements. So what the East New York CLT was like to do is purchase the land. We can build a 4 to 6 family unit on CLT land and make it truly affordable for the community, which would, to me, would stop the displacement of the people in the community. I'm really tired of seeing all these high-rise buildings coming into East New York. And my people or the people of my community can't afford to get into these apartments. Elise?
Nothing to add.
Thank you both. So could we go to the questions, I think? So some initial questions that we had. So each of these slides coming up, we have some notes on them that we wrote down, in talking to Elise and other people and amongst ourselves. So there are a couple slides where there was one main question, and, we wrote down some notes based on our previous conversations, which we can leave up here. But why don't we just ask the main question? I think if you want to elaborate on the question, go right ahead. And then if Deborah or Elise Golden have further comments, they can certainly share those further comments. So Elise Shook, you did a lot of work helping to put this meeting together. You want to ask our first question?
Sure. Elise, it's great to see you, and Deborah, I'm so glad that you're here as well. So I guess this question, we wanted to kind of present like kind of an objective stance on CLTs. So these series of questions are posed around a number of possible challenges that we thought could be part of the picture. So this first one is about one that Elise mentioned earlier, which is about the cost of acquiring land. It seems to be like a big hurdle. So I was wondering if the two of you could maybe speak about that in terms of, I'm curious, Deborah, if you could speak, specifically about this recent project that you're pursuing with this 18-unit building and the cost of acquiring that building and what that was like for you, or if you feel comfortable speaking about that.
Sure. The cost was more than we really anticipated, but we look at the long-term goal. It's an 18-unit building, and if we make it truly affordable for the tenants there, tenants will pay their rent. It'll be, the long-term goal is to see that it's taking out of that horrible landlord's hand and the tenants are living a quality life. You live a quality life, you're going to pay your rent, and then the cost of the building will eventually come back. We'll be able to pay off any debt that we acquire. But like I said, we've spoken with philanthropists, and they are just so amazed and so gung-ho about the CLT movement that they've been giving us money to help us acquire this building. That's and not only that, it hasn't been easy. It's been a struggle working with this landlord, this property owner, to the point where he was supposed to do XYZ for us at this date, and he never came up with the documents that we needed. We went back to him because of his, how do you say it, default in the sale agreement. We were able to take off $300,000 off of the sale of the building, which was good, and it's been bargaining back and forth between this landlord and the East New York CLT. But hopefully by the end of January, all the dominoes will have fallen and we'll be able to finally do the final sale of the building. Hasn't been easy. It's not easy. I'm going to say organizing, period, is not easy. It's not easy getting people to go along with something new that they've never heard of. People have been told and made so many promises by other organizations, other groups, other things that people say, oh, we're going to do this. And people have been disappointed so much that people are afraid to really get involved with something new. But I see the CLT movement really moving. I'm going to say quickly and then I'm going to stop. I went to a conference out in California Network, CLT Network in California. They are doing amazing things out there when it comes to CLTs. Why? Because they have the government on their side. The government just gave them $500 million to stop foreclosures in East New York. I mean, in California, sorry. 500 million to stop foreclosures in California, which is given to the CLTs so that they can go to these homes that are in foreclosure and stop the foreclosure movement. It's just amazing. And I want to see that brought here into New York. The East New York CLT, along with the Abolish the Tax Lien Sale Coalition, is also fighting for change in the way that we collect our municipal debt. And we're doing a rally tomorrow, so yeah, we'll see what happens. So far, we've had stopped the lien sale for 2 years, and we want to continue to fight for a fair and equitable way for this government to collect their municipal debts. Did I answer your question, Elise?
Yeah. So Elise, you had mentioned earlier that if CLTs are working to acquire land, you don't get any special benefit. There's no discount. So if you were to pursue purchasing it on the private market, could you give us just a general range of what it might cost to, I don't know if the land is, I guess the land first.
I wish I could give you a range. I mean,
okay.
I think I know probably just as much as any of you by cruising Zillow and dreaming about buying an apartment. But well over $1 million to several $1 million. And especially when we're looking at, when we're working with tenants who are living in housing that needs rehab, then that's additional funding. That being said, I know we're talking about the challenges of CLTs, and I think that is real. And just like in California, they won that $500 million. We're working to get funding through the state, through the community controlled affordable housing pilot. We're working to expand that. We're working to pass the Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act and win funding so that tenants and nonprofits can have support in buying their buildings. We're working to expand and refund the Neighborhood Pillars program here in New York City. So we're working to get funding streams, but of course this is a growing, newer movement, and so we're on the beginning side of that, but we're hoping that if we come together in a couple of years that we'll have a different answer, that there will be more support. Yeah.
So of this list, this bulleted list, which of these do you think is the most feasible, or would it be purchasing?
Yeah, I think all of it takes a lot, right? So I think that the two ways that community land trusts are currently really pursuing land, which are pushing the city to transfer land, that takes an organizing campaign, and that takes a lot of coordination and work. And working with tenant associations, that takes doing really deep grassroots tenant organizing and doing a strategic campaign. So I think that those are sort of the main ways that CLTs are doing it. I will say, if there's a group of people who are committed to being a part of a community land trust and they have a couple $1 million to invest, then that's the easiest way, right? That you can just buy a small home, buy a small building, but that wouldn't need the deep organizing. And yet that organizing is such an essential component of CLTs that it's not. I also see a lot of value in that campaign work. So that's a very long-winded answer to say There's no real answer.
Well, it's amazing that Deborah, that these philanthropists were interested in kind of, they saw the value of the model, and that they were willing to support you with whatever the funds were, to help you in purchasing this home and this building. I mean, that's really a testament to the work that you've done, and could be like a real
Start.
right, for the other CLTs in the city. I mean, it's
Yes,
really
yes.
You should be very proud of that. So I hope that these philanthropists maybe could be receptive.
Funders for the future
Yeah.
buildings to be acquired, because we can't always depend on the government to say, okay, or HPD or whoever it is to say, okay, here's a building, here's a piece of land, I'm going to sell it to you for $1. It's not going to always happen that way, because everybody's looking to make $1 off of somebody somehow, some way. But with the CLT movement, we're not looking to make money. We're looking to keep people housed, to keep people with a roof over their head, to keep them living in decent, units or homes. It could be homes with the tax lien sale. We want to keep our seniors in their homes who lived and worked for over 40, 50 years and have paid off their mortgage, but now owe money because of back taxes. And now the government wants to take their homes from them. Not heard of, unheard of. We're not going to allow that to happen. So hopefully these philanthropists will be another pot of money that, the CLT can acquire to purchase homes.
Could I suggest that Elise, the next question is from Damien. Maybe if you want to, Elise Shook, if you want to ask Damien's question, because I know he's not on the call right now. And then Jeremy and Ryan could ask their question. Or Ryan, if you want Jeremy to ask your question, whatever's
okay
better
now.
for you. Okay, great. So maybe
Thank
Elise, if you want to ask Elise Golden, do you want to ask Damien's question, and then we'll go to Jeremy and Ryan, and then we can move on to the group discussion.
Sure. Okay, so the next kind of challenge we were considering was the idea of time, how the concept of time and how long this takes. If you guys could give some sense of what the process looks like in terms of the length of time it takes to purchase land, or to build relationships to move towards that goal. I know it seems there's variability, but if maybe just if you can speak to some examples, that would be helpful.
The Mott Haven Port Morris Community Land Stewards fought for more than 10 years. I believe it was probably 11 years to win control of a city-owned site. And they just won, but it took them 11 years. Deborah, how long have you all been organizing with 248 Arlington?
Well, believe it or not, 248 Arlington, we started speaking with the landlord, I'm going to say in September, July, August, September. It's been about maybe 5 months that we've been working. But unfortunately, the fortunate part is because we've been dealing directly with the landlord, with the owner of the property. When it comes to the government agencies, there's so many loopholes and hoops and things that you have to jump through in order for them to give you land or a building. And then you have to be even careful then with certain pieces of land or buildings that the government wants to give to a CLT, because everybody's not for CLTs. I've seen them offer up some buildings and land that's undevelopable. But why would you want to give that to a community land trust when you know it's not developable? You're trying to make a CLT fail by saying, okay, see, CLTs can't do it because we gave them this land, but you gave us land that you couldn't develop on. So you have to be careful. It's not an easy process. Like I said, the East New York CLT, I'm going to say we've been blessed to been able to deal with this landlord, but we'll see at the end how good the blessing is. Once we do that final sale, of that tenement building. But like Elise said, when it came to Port Morris, for that building that they wanted, it took them over 10 years to acquire it. And they started it when the CLT was very young. A lot of government officials, a lot of agencies did not even know what a CLT is. And we're still educating a lot of government officials, a lot of agencies on what a CLT is and how it can help our community grow.
So as a follow-up to that, so the long process, that more than 10 years, I'm curious what your thoughts are as to what led to that length of time. Like what do you think were the contributing factors to that?
I don't know everything about that fight, so but I think that a couple of things that were contributing is just what Deborah said, that people didn't know what a CLT was, so there wasn't sort of like political movement or like political power behind the ask to get the land. And I'm not sure what else, to be honest. Yeah. Sorry, I don't have a better answer.
But I believe the more the CLTs come together, the more we fight, the more we voice what it is that a CLT can do, the more the government is moving towards being okay with the CLT movement. Especially at this time, this past year, we had a lot of new council members, young new council members come into city council, and they all just fell right in line with the CLT movement. So that helped push the needle up a little bit more. So we just have to continue to voice our opinions and to fight for our land, for our community. Because like I said, who better to decide what's needed in the community than the residents of that community?
Thank you so much. Can we go to Jeremy, and then Jeremy, when you've asked your question, you can pass it to Ryan?
Sure. Yeah, so this question that we had was about sort of the issue of stability and long-term, sort of how you maintain it. It seems like one of the biggest things for a CLT is getting the funding off to get it off the ground, and then also like sustaining it funding wise. And sort of how, if you've dealt with or seen sort of CLTs that have had to, what happens if a CLT goes under, and what are the sort of things in place to make sure, like safeguards in place to make sure that what is the transition from that, and sort of just, yeah, trying to give people a sense of like what the pitfalls are, and that obviously this isn't a perfect model, but that what it really takes to maintain it. And yeah, just so that's some of the stuff that we're interested in.
These are tough hitting questions. So I've heard of maybe like 2 or 3 community land trusts that have started and then failed to be able to continue or maintain their properties as a community land trust. I think that I'm trying to think of the examples. I think a community land trust, like any other nonprofit organization, is susceptible to mismanagement, money problems, not being true to the tenets of a CLT. I think that, yeah, I think I see again, like our focus, that's written here is on CLTs that want to engage in these like democratic decision making and meaningful community control. And I think that through the challenges of buying and stewarding land in our system, that's not easy. And I think that doesn't always go as planned. And so, yeah, I don't know. Deborah, do you have anything you want to add?
That's a really good and hard question because I don't even think about failing when it comes to the East New York CLT. I really don't. I don't see it failing because we're so driven to see that it works for the people, for our community. But I guess you could say a CLT is just like any other entity, any other government. Look how long NYCHA was there, and the government owned NYCHA. And the government, after all these years, it's now being privatized, so it didn't even work for the government. But it has to do with the people who are part of the organization, of the organizing. How strong-headed are you? And the people that you bring in behind you, how strong are you dedicated to your mission and your value of your community, of ownership of the land? Because I tell everybody, I keep repeating, land is power. When you own the land, you decide what goes on that land. Aren't you tired of other people coming in your community saying, oh, I'm putting this here? But we're like, we don't need a 20-story building. We need a senior center. Oh, nope, I got to make money, so I'm putting a 20-story building. It's not that. It's the people who are a part of the organization. And you have to stay on top of everybody and make sure that the bad seeds are weeded out. Sorry. To make sure the bad seeds are weeded out. That's my thing. It's not guaranteed, but it's nothing is a guarantee. Life isn't a guarantee. Nothing is a guarantee.
So Jeremy, do you mind if I ask a
go ahead.
What's that?
I was going to ask, I'm curious to the length of time it takes to get a CLT going from soup to nuts, like from the first set of folks who are interested in organizing to, building momentum. I would love to get their thoughts on that. If you're cool with that, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, for the East New York CLT, we've only been in existence since 2020, and we started during the pandemic. Our first meeting was through Zoom, so it like I said before, it really depends on who you're organizing with, your values, who are you all aligned in your values and in your mission of your CLT, and how much participation are you getting out of your people you're organizing with. That's where it, that's how you build the momentum. A lot of people were really surprised with the East New York CLT because we've come so far in acquiring and fighting for land and for change in every area, of our community. And even with legislation, it really depends on who you aligned with in your CLT, how far you get. Because like I said, we've only been in existence since 2020, 3 years, and we're already getting ready to acquire our first building. So it all depends on, just how strong of a CLT you can build. It's not easy. It's not easy. Many people wear many hats in the CLT movement. In your one CLT, many hats.
Thank you. I'm just doing a time check at 7:45. So I think if we could hear Ryan's question, and then if we could move to the slide where we can just get some feedback from people on the call. I know that there are several people on this call who haven't had a chance to speak yet, and we'd certainly love to hear their thoughts. So Ryan, would you like to ask your question?
Let's do it. Yeah, I think we just need to progress the slide. Thank you both, by the way. This has been incredible. And I think in so many ways, you've actually already answered what this question is, which is, us as a newer community, entertaining this idea, which I am a very firm believer in, not just from a housing perspective, but from a land use perspective, and, possibly allowing people to gain some sort of sense of food sovereignty. There's just like so many ways and uses for land in that respect. So the question is really about, and again, I feel like you've answered this, but sort of capacity, what sort of energy needs to go into an initiative like this from a community perspective? And I feel like it's a lot. But yeah, I think that is the question, and I feel like the two of you have perhaps much more knowledge on that question than we would.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start, but then Deborah has much more of the hands-on experience. I think that, yeah, a lot. I mean, I think that what's really cool, just thinking about Sunset Park, right? And not to say that, not to assume that a community land trust will be formed in Sunset Park, but I think to start talking with, there's so many incredible organizing groups and activists and groups that have really deep relationships with the community. And so I think finding ways to bring those groups together and have meaningful conversations about what might be the benefits of a CLT, if there was, a creation of a CLT, what would they want the board to look like? What would feel meaningfully democratic, and what type of land would you want to pursue? And I would say, that those conversations could happen really fast if there's a lot of momentum and people are really eager and there's time and space, or it could happen really slowly. Maybe groups say, we want to have a couple of town halls with our young people, and that's gonna, we have to wait till the summer, and we have to, do it in a specific way that works for our people. And so I think it could be really fast, or it could be, a real long process. But I think either way, ensuring that it's not just a couple of people coming together and saying, hey, let's do this, and then I think that, yeah, I think the more it's going to be more sustainable and more powerful, the more people and like the wider community is really involved from the bottom up, like from the start of the process.
Ooh. Capacity. Go ahead, Jamie.
Thank you, Elise. I'm sorry, John. Jeremy.
Yeah, I was just going to suggest that I saw that there were some hands from Katie Walsh and Maria Roca. And then I was going to suggest we take questions and comments for about 15 minutes. And Elise, Elise Golden, if you advance to the next slide, there is I think I moved the slides around a little bit. So if you go to slide 25, there is a slide where it says notes. So if it's okay with people, I can write down, as people are talking, I can write down some of these ideas, comments, notes that folks are raising on this call. And Elise Golden, Deborah, if you would like to comment on a question, or if it's just a comment from somebody who's speaking, we can record it, and it can be food for thought in the future, if that's okay with everybody else. I don't show all of the people raising their hands, so either Antoinette or Jeremy, would you be able to call on people?
Yeah, we have Katie Walsh and Maria Roca. So I'll call on Katie first.
Sorry, I keep unmuting and muting. Okay, you can hear me? I hope.
Yes.
Yes, okay, great. This is just thinking about the opportunities and the way you just ended the last question, Elise, I just wanted to connect the dots between a process that the Neighbors Helping Neighbors Fifth Avenue Committee is undertaking related to brownfield development. And so just planting seeds or making connections. Basically, my understanding is that Neighbors Help Fifth Avenue Committee has received money from the state of New York to explore what would be possible related to different development sites that are not only public land. I believe some of them are also currently privately owned, and exploring and making recommendations around how those brownfield development sites could be used. Something that I didn't know until that process started was like, technically everything is considered a brownfield in our community in Sunset Park because of and maybe a lot of New York City because of levels of contamination. So it's not as though they're actually using underlying data to inform the site locations. And so the connecting of the dots is just to say that it's not as though those project sites are like being developed or it's definitely happening. Like my understanding is the grant is to like make a recommendation to the state of New York, but I think it would be healthy, useful to like bring the community land trust conversation that you all are catalyzing into that. And there was a meeting that happened at the community board office. It was not hosted by the community board. It was hosted by them, but it was in the CB7 office. But then there will be another one. I can follow up. I'm pretty sure it's like January 16th. That's 6 or 6:30. I can send it out to Antoinette. But just bring that there, right? In terms of like if recommendations are going to be made on behalf of an organization that is doing work in the community to the state of New York, I'd love to see CLTs in there. So sorry that was long-winded. I'm a bit tired, but thank you. Thanks for the presentation.
Thanks, Katie, for that. That's really important. And Maria, let me just.
Yes, hi.
You're good. Okay, great.
Okay, this is just very opportune. Katie, my comments and concerns are also regarding the BOA, from the state of New York, awarded to Fifth Avenue Committee to explore the feasibility of, as you said, to repurpose or this brownfields and what is possible and not possible and where they're located. Since you seem to know a little bit about this, and this is directed to anyone, but in particular to Katie, who just spoke, since that first presentation, I've been told, I haven't checked for possibly a 2-week period at this point, the outcome of that presentation that just happened to take place at the CB7 space, it was not a CB7 sponsored presentation or program. Has anything appeared on the Fifth Avenue Committee website, which as it was promised that it would be, before I go on with my comments? Anybody knows?
I don't know, but I can ask Maria. And
well, I can ask as well. I just thought since you were brought it up that you were keeping in touch with either Fifth Avenue Committee or in conversation with them or tracking what was going on. Okay. So I was there. Were you there in person or were you there? Because I don't think it was recorded. It was hazy whether it had been recorded or not. Yeah, that was another issue because it was not a CB7 event, and that was problematic for me because for many reasons, which are not necessary. Are not. This is not a good moment to go into that, but my next question is to, and I'm sorry I didn't catch your name. I've joined a bit late. The woman who was speaking on behalf of the East New York or in connection with East New York CLT, was there any competition, any other organization, any other group in East New York that was also wanting or interested in starting a CLT?
I'm gonna say no.
Okay.
Um,
Okay, I
there
suspected
was
that.
no. We are the only CLT in East New York. There we when we started out, we wanted to include Brownsville, which is our neighboring community. But I'm hearing that Brownsville wants to start their own CLT, which is fine because then, then East New York will stay focused on property in East New York, or either East New York and Brownsville will collaborate together to acquire property together to preserve East New York and Brownsville.
Right, exactly. And fingers crossed that you're aligned in your mission, your goals.
Yes.
Well,
Yes,
that's
to
the
keep
other,
it truly affordable.
And
Yes.
as you had, I caught the last comments, your last comments, and I 100%, well, 200% on the same page with you, because it all boils down to the individuals and to what those individuals have in mind. What is their agenda? Well, how do they arrive? From what angle? And just like in anything else in life, it's like in a marriage, like in any relationship one has.
What are you bringing to the table?
Right, and as long as people are transparent, and but then you have to put your antennas on and sharpen them and blah blah blah. So I'm gonna go back to Sunset Park, and the reveal at that first meeting of Fifth Avenue Committee that they were also in pursuit of a CLT in Sunset Park as a nonprofit, a very well established nonprofit with long-term relationships at many levels. I had not ever heard, not that I know at all, about what Fifth Avenue Committee intends to do or doesn't intend to do or would like to do. But I had never heard that intention connected to Fifth Avenue Committee, that of a CLT, because they usually own the property outright. Anything that they develop, they have ownership of. In like the library, when the library was sold to them by the city in order to redevelop the library with housing above it and all that. So I think it behooves us, any CLT, anyone out there who's thinking of a CLT, to really understand. And I brought this up from a different perspective, different angle at other meetings. That did I introduce myself? I'm sorry, or I was introduced. Maria Roca, Friends of Sunset Park. Okay, that it is extremely important that the ownership of the land, and I'm not advocating for this, that, or the other thing, that be very, 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 very clear, and that ownership is solid, or if it is the control of that land. If I personally think the land needs to be put in a trust, in a land trust, as there is a model for that already in the state of New York. There's a housing trust fund, and it has to be done very well with good lawyers representing the people, so that nobody then goes and says, oh, wait a moment, yeah, the trust, like as they are told, as you hear conversations now at the federal level with Social Security. Oh, no, we'll take the money. No, but the Social Security is the trust, and you're not supposed to touch that money. So there's, and I have some experience in that, in having worked with the Housing Trust Fund, developing ownership affordable housing a number of decades ago. So one has to be very clever, very astute, have good lawyers that really are looking out for you, hopefully pro bono lawyers that are really understand and believe in the same mission and the same outcome. So I bring that to the table, and I'm glad Katie introduced the subject, that I think the conversation somewhat, the environment has shifted a little bit has been modified a little bit because this group, the group that from the housing committee that is here, the many people who are present here today, are the ones from the community who have advanced the idea of a CLT for Sunset Park. Nobody else said boo, as far as an entity, a group. So we are a self, I don't know what to call it. We came together with that not under any particular banner of a 501c3 of anything like that. We are community people who have looked into this, studied this, and when nobody else has been producing the amount of solid, in perpetuity, truly affordable housing, we said, okay, what's out there? Who has done what? And so we found each other. We are not an entity, a 501c3 with a long history or whatever. So we really need to think about that and move on that. And this is not the place to kind of have that conversation right now at whatever 8 o'clock at night. And I apologize for the delay, but in joining. But I think we have a different. The environment has changed a little bit. The zeitgeist of Sunset Park has changed a little bit as to what can be done, who wants what out of a CLT, what is the model that is being proposed or is being, and be very sure as to what the CLT, I don't know, contingent, for lack of a better word, that participates in the housing committee really wants, and so I suspect it is not an easy project. It is not an easy endeavor, but that endeavor has now been further complicated. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Maria. And just to clarify for this meeting, this is a workshop that's being hosted by the Housing Committee. The Housing Committee is not moving forward with plans to institute a CLT. This meeting is just for informational purposes. I just wanted to clarify that.
Right. Thank you for that. And okay, so we need we need to look at more stuff and dig deeper. That's all.
Thank you, Maria.
Yeah.
So I just want to be cognizant of time and really appreciate Deborah and Elise. You both have so a wealth of knowledge. I would just want to be cognizant of time. It's 8 o'clock now. I know that members of the Housing Committee really took a long time to go into the weeds of organizing tonight. Do you all want to go through the questions that you had for the breakout sessions, or did you want to give around, do a quick go around to see if any of the attendees had any lingering questions?
I would suggest just asking for any remaining questions. I see Jorge has his hand up, and I would suggest just if it's okay with others, going around if anyone else wants to share further thoughts, and then we can wrap this particular meeting, because again, this is just informational and people can of course talk anytime and can find each other and talk about this issue at any time. And we don't want to ask Deborah and Elise to stay on much longer.
Yeah, so the original thought was to have us all go into breakout sessions and had conversations, but it looks like we're just going to move forward, if it's okay with the other housing committee members, with questions. So we have, so we're going to hope to end by 8:15, if that's okay with you, Elise and Deborah. I see Jorge, your hand is raised. If you could limit your question to a minute, just to give other folks an opportunity to join in on the conversation.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Yes, of course. Nice to see and hear all your voices. Yeah, my question was maybe, to anybody, but maybe particularly to Elise and Deborah, since you have been thinking about this a lot. And thank you, by the way, for sharing your knowledge honestly with us. It's very difficult to start new things. My question was just about, I guess there's a lot of conversations right now about a rezoning that the mayor is trying to do, right? I think he's branding it City of Yes, and he's trying to put things in there like, I think like being able to build on accessory dwelling units, things like that. And I'm just curious, like from a technical perspective, which I certainly lack, and maybe some of my neighbors might lack as well. Like, if y'all see any opportunities there in the rezoning proposal that the city and the mayor are trying to do, and I guess also, at the state level too, if there's anything maybe that we should be asking our elected officials for that maybe could make it easier for things like community land trusts to start in Sunset Park or elsewhere in the city where they're needed.
I see Deborah shaking her head. Yeah, I mean, I also don't have like a urban planning or kind of that type of background to give a real analysis. I will say from an organizing standpoint, when neighborhoods are going through rezoning, there are opportunities, right, to organize, to fight back, to put forth your own vision of what you want for your neighborhood. And we've seen some neighborhoods win some real community control through organizing in those processes. I think that a big critique that many of our groups have about the City of Yes is that it says, yes, we need more housing. We agree, we need more housing. But the question for us is housing for who, right? So for who and owned by who? So we don't want housing that's built, for people who, we want housing built for those who really need it the most. The lowest income New Yorkers, people without homes. And we also don't want developers to just get rich off of our communities. We want to be able to keep money in our neighborhoods to grow community wealth, grow individual wealth, especially for those who haven't been able to, like Black and Brown New Yorkers. And so that's our main critique. Deborah, did you want to jump in?
A thought just came to my head when you talked about the developers and keeping things truly affordable. Because with the CLT, there is a ground lease that we create, and the ground lease is good for 99 years. So that's like forever in perpetuity. So when it comes to the high-end developers, they get tax breaks to build these high-end buildings, and they'll say, okay, they'll build 100 units, and out of 100 units, maybe 20 of them may go to truly affordable, very low income people. But eventually those units, after 20, 30 years, they can put that back up to market value, which isn't fair to someone who rented it at a certain amount and has stayed in the apartment for 20 years. Now all of a sudden their rent is being doubled because that property owner has been allowed to put that unit back up to market rate. That's what they do once the subsidy runs out, and the government says, okay, you built this building, you've had it for 20 years, now you got to pay taxes. So they say, okay, I got to pay taxes, so I'm going to put everybody's rent back up to market value. And the CLT is not like that. We want to be able to keep our units truly, truly affordable. Yes, of course, everybody's going to have a increase in rent, but it's going to be affordable for our people. We know that, the rental units are going up even more so, but we want to keep it truly affordable for our people in our community.
Yeah, and I'm just throwing in the chat real quick before the next question. There are questions around like what policies that might support CLTs. So we're working both in the city and the state to pass policies. And instead of going deep into it, you can read the website yourself.
Yeah.
So before we we circle back to Jeremy and Maria, I just want to acknowledge that we have some folks joined in as attendees who don't have the ability to raise their hand. So if you all have any questions, I believe, Jeremy Kaplan, you're a co-host. You might be able to promote someone to panelist role. So if
Yeah.
anyone who is an attendee, if you'd like to ask your question, you can just drop a line in the chat and then we can promote you.
And I just asked anybody if they wanted to be promoted.
And Rona, you did ask a question in the Q&A. Tonight's presentation is being recorded and the recording is going to be available on the Community Board 7 YouTube page.
Thank you.
Okay, so far no takers. So we have Jeremy and Maria. But if you could just keep your questions, if you could just limit your questions each to a minute. Thank you.
Yeah, actually, I just wanted to chime in really quickly about the Eric Adams conversation and CLTs. I think it's pretty clear that the city of Yes is not for CLTs, but just in general, like we have a very pro CLT, like Deborah said, city council. I think if Eric Adams was at all good on CLTs, which he's not, he's clearly for developers and it does not like anything that takes something out of the market. We would get a lot more done. I think if we had a mayor who actually believed in CLTs, because I think the city council right now is in a pretty good place that wants to support it. And I think what we've seen over the years is that city council tries to support CLTs here and there with drips and drabs of money, usually towards technical training. But I think the biggest thing is to get a much bigger push for like real funding, like what we've seen, like you said, California. One other point to mention is Kansas City tenants groups. They did a fund that there was a tax that would put the money towards housing, and some of that could be used for CLT. I think the tenants union or Kansas City tenants would decide basically on what the housing, where that funding mechanism would go or where that money would go. So there's lots of like interesting and exciting ways, but I think like just in general, like Eric Adams is not a friend of CLTs for sure. And so important, I think, and maybe we'll have a larger conversation about the rezonings and the city of Yes, because I think that's really important. But yeah, I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, and just to quickly add on to that, the movement to protect the people that has activist Alicia Boyd on their website. They have a lot of information that they've done to dissect some of the text amendment changes to the city of Yes. So if anyone's interested in taking a look at that, Alicia Boyd and her team have been, they've done a really good job to help dissect that a bit if anyone's interested. And Maria, you're going to end us off today. I see your hand is raised.
Yes, can you guys hear me? Yes,
Yep.
okay. All right, thank you. This is number 2 time that somebody else was thinking what I was thinking, and great minds think alike, I guess. One item that sometimes gets forgotten when you're dealing with the affordable quote unquote version from New York City government in the last number of years is that it is based on the medium income, AMI. And as the area that New York City, the 5 boroughs, belongs in as far as the AMI calculations, which include Long Island and includes Westchester, very high. And the New York City incomes are going salaries are going up very high. Maybe not for you and me, and and the many people who we know, but certainly for a good number of people and all that, those numbers are going up and up and away. So AMI is a percentage. I mean, for when you start deciding how many units, what size, what the rent, and 60% of what it is today is not going to be 60% of what it is next year or the year after that if the trends continue. So we have to think, this is not just today, but what is 60%? What is that? We're seeing 120% of the present and 130% of the present as being considered affordable. We know the majority of New Yorkers don't make those salaries. So keep that in mind as an argument, for CLTs, because CLTs won't work according to those rules. You have to, of course, be very vigilant and be a good fiscal what do you call it, protector of that. What are the numbers? Keep like when you run a good co-op, any kind of co-op, and I live in one, and we're self-managed. We count every penny, and we have discussions over every single penny. And sometimes, there are people who have, in my building, we have an increasing number of people who make a lot of money. So far, we've been able to, the majority of the people say, no, not everybody here makes $180,000 a year or $150,000 or $200,000. And we're here this is a co-op, and we're here for everybody. So I just wanted to sort of throw that in as an argument for a CLT, and a well-run CLT needs to be the best fiscal overseer of everything. It's about money at the end of the day, and it doesn't cost as much money to run housing as private landlords often want us to think it does. We do it ourselves here. We do it internally, and because we know the more we save, the more we keep in our pockets and can take to our own bank accounts, not somebody else's bank account. So I just wanted to throw that in, because that AMI conversation has really not been had as to, well, the AMI will serve. Yeah, AMI of what? Okay, I'll just leave it at that. And thank you for the opportunity to speak a second time.
Thank you, Maria. I just want to wish Elise a happy birthday. And John, I'll leave it to you if you want to leave any closing remarks.
I just want to thank everybody for their time. Thank you to Elise Shook for working so hard on this meeting, and Jeremy and other people for working to put together this meeting. And Elise and Deborah, thank you so much for your time, for being here. There are many more things we can say about this, and I think we learned tonight that this is sort of a long-term effort, but we learned a little bit about what it looks like from Deborah's experience. And so if people are interested in exploring this further, they can certainly get in touch with each other and explore it going forward. There may be more meetings on CLTs from the Housing Committee. I think that's something the committee wants to discuss and will discuss. So if there are more meetings on this topic, certainly the committee will let people know about that. And thank you all so much for participating. And I hope that people on this call can continue talking about this and other housing issues soon. So thank you, Antoinette. We appreciate it. I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.